Welcome back to Why We Buy It. Today it is my turn to talk watches.
Yeah, the last video I shot regarding watches was about the Ratto Captain Cook, and I talked about how watches are essentially luxury items.
They are luxury items, and I personally consider my watches more jewelry.
And her watch really is more jewelry. So what she has here is a vintage, we're talking late 60s, early 70s, Tudor, 14 karat gold integrated bracelet bangle watch, right? And when she wears this, it's not like me wearing my watches where they're fully fitted to my wrist. If you throw it on,
it's very loose to my wrist. There. Yeah, it's not. Oops, sorry, folks. It's not the tightest to my wrist, but I love it because it's nice and light.
It's essentially a bracelet.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And even though it's got a tiny dial,
it's very legible.
The legibility is there,
Yeah.
so if someone were to happen to ask her, oh, what's the time? She can check it for sure.
Yeah.
But for the most part, she sort of throws it on and forgets it's a watch.
Yeah, it's
right?
very light. It's very light, which I like.
It's jewelry. And the reason you can have a watch like this from the 60s is because it's a mechanical movement. So provided you have it serviced, you maintain it, it's going to last forever, right? That's the beauty of it. And there's a lot of skepticism around vintage watches. Some people are very nervous about buying vintage watches. There's a lot of, especially these days, talk about whether or not they're legitimate, have they been messed with. But if you purchase a vintage watch from a reputable dealer, you're going to get the real deal. And maybe you got to pay a little bit more than if you were to buy it off something like eBay. But at least you know you're getting a quality product. And if you're going to buy a vintage watch and you do want it to last forever,
make sure it's mechanical.
Make sure it's mechanical and make sure it's from a reputable brand.
Yeah. The reason I say make sure it's mechanical is because I think I've only had to service this thing like once every, 10 years? So that to me is great. And then every evening we have our set time where Kobe literally just sit there and wind my watch.
We keep it running.
Yeah.
We keep it running. I keep all of my mechanicals, manual wind watches running constantly because the chances of them messing up when they're sitting dormant is greater than it is when they're running. So we always keep them running. And I'm certain the service interval in this is probably 5 years, but really we go 10. Yeah. We go 10. And the cost to service this watch it's not cheap, okay, by any means. Because it's a Tudor, it's a vintage watch, it was more expensive to service this watch than it was to buy my Seagull 1963.
Yeah, oh,
right?
that's for sure.
So it's not cheap, but again, it's once every 10 years, and you've got a piece that it's striking.
Yeah, it stands out. I think I bring this watch with me every time we go on vacation. One, because I wind it every day, and I don't want to leave it at home and have whoever's watching our place have that responsibility to wind my watch. But also, Mike, when we have our formal nights or our chic nights, I always get complimented on this watch, and it still makes me very proud to have it.
Yeah, and if you are going to buy a watch, like I said, especially a vintage piece, make sure you buy it from a reputable dealer. Make sure you buy a reputable brand that's still in existence.
Yeah.
Because we have had, the odd issue with this watch where part of the mechanical movement eventually wears out, right, and has to be replaced. But because it's a Tudor, and Tudor's going to be around forever, it was no problem for them to send it to Tudor and have them replace the part, right? It was no issue whatsoever. If you buy a vintage piece and it's of a brand that no longer exists, it could be much more difficult to find a replacement part if something does eventually wear out.
That's right.
So keep that in mind when you're purchasing a watch. And like Amy said, generally she's only wearing this on vacation. There are a few big events we've gone to here in Canada where she'll break out the 14 karat gold Tudor, but for the most part, it's a vacation piece for us, right? Because we do a lot of cruising. If you follow the channel, you'll know that. Check out some of our cruise videos. But cruising has its chic nights or formal nights, depending which cruise line you're going with. And it's nice to dress up, and part of dressing up is wearing glamorous things. And like I said, watches are luxury pieces, and having that as part of your accessories and your outfit, it's fantastic, right?
Yeah, I pretty much I only wear this watch when we're on the ship. I will not bring it with me when we go off the ship because you never know. Yeah. You never know. I am still very protective of this watch, so I make sure it's in the safe or it's on me. So, I won't bring it out and about too often.
If you have a watch that you love for whatever reason, could be personal reasons, could be a prize gift, could be a family heirloom, what have you, just take care of them and they'll take care of you. They'll last forever.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the case with this watch. Right?
And for me, vintage watches are just timeless. Like they, no pun intended, but they are. It's always something more special when it's vintage.
Yeah. And in this case, right, you've got the gold value.
Yeah.
So this will always retain its value. It being a Tudor, that increases the value. But when it comes to precious metals and watches, it's an investment you can safely make, because even if the watch eventually itself becomes worthless, the precious metals will always be worth something.
That's right.
Right? So that's something you want to pass down to your next generation, and it's always going to be valuable to them and special to them.
Till next time, guys. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos.
And the next time we're on a cruise, be sure to take a few additional photos of us on those chic nights with Annie wearing her Tudor 1960s watch.
Yeah.